Now let's go into more detail about how to configure your Varistroke-I actuator. We'd recommend you start at the input configuration page. Here you'll find analog demand input 1 and 2. You'll find their current readings as well as how they are scaled. Here's how you would change if your control cannot output a 4 to 20 signal. You may set this to 5 to 18 or 6 to 17 depending on what your demand is capable of. Also displayed is the analog input fault detection thresholds. Here the high limit and low limit shows the range by which your analog input must stay within. If the signal were to drop below 2 milliamps or above 22 milliamps, the control would then ignore this analog input. And depending on how you have your redundancy set up in this box down here, this may shut down or alarm the unit. All the same values and same settings are available here for analog demand input 2. And here is where you can configure your redundancy of the two analog inputs. This will allow you to select whether you would like to do a single channel 1, single channel 2, whether you'd like to use both signals and always select the low signal, or the same thing and only select the high signal, or a mode where you can select both analog inputs and just average them. If we select average, you'll see some new options come up here. This is where you would configure the spread alarm limits, and this box will display the actual spread. So here, my analog input 1 and input 2 are more than 5% away from each other. One of the inputs will be ignored. This is the box where you can select which input will be ignored, or you can disable this function and say continue to average. This warning here will tell you if the spread warning is currently active. Here is the position feedback configuration. Similar to the demand input configuration, this has some various modes that you can select. You can either do single channel 1, single channel 2, or dual average. This gives you the current feedbacks, readings from the device. And same thing here. Spread alarm limits sets that if your two feedbacks go out of range more than 5% of each other, one of those feedbacks will be ignored based on what you have selected here. This is where you can configure the two discrete inputs in your Varistroke-I actuator. The first one is a run enable. When selected as used, this can provide you a shutdown function to the actuator. This is typically wired to a turbine's shutdown system, by which when the contact is open, the actuator will return to its fail-safe position. The second one is a reset function. This discrete input can be wired to a switch outside the actuator. That switch can then be toggled to clear any active alarms or shutdowns.